So let me,
But if you record it, you can publish it then later. So I have to record it, or you may send me with transfer or whatever.
yeah, I'm just going to record it to the cloud, which means you can just log into Zoom and grab it. So,
It say me that if you want to record, ask the host, but there is no button to ask you. Did you
say
start?
that. Yeah, it's recording now, so I can get it to you or post the link. As long as you
Okay.
don't want me to edit anything, I'll be good.
Okay, if you are recording, everything is okay then. How many
Yeah.
people?
Yep. It says it's recording. So, and it's 5 after. So I guess people can jump in or come and go as they want. So,
Yeah,
um,
let's start it.
all right. So let me give you a little bit of history. Most of you have kind of picked up on who I am and who Trinic is, but our history, or at least my history in this industry, started way back in 1992. Is when I made my first concrete countertop. Kind of heard about the idea, and we were doing some heavy construction, so thought, hey, we could probably make this look good enough for furniture. And I was super proud of that piece back in 1992, and it's still actually at a friend of mine's house that he uses for a bar. And it's probably one of the most horrible looking things that you've ever seen in your life, but it's what we did back then, just standard wet cast with rebar. And we did that for a long time, until it got to the point where we were kind of tired of lugging around the heavy stuff and thought, hey, there's this thing called GFRC, so let's explore that. And sometimes I question whether I should have stuck with it, or just given up on it, because it can be frustrating for sure. As you all know, I can see all your questions and everything along the way. But we certainly have learned a lot, and the industry has come a really long way. We literally started small manufacturing out of about 900 square feet, whatever that is in square meters, um, and made do for quite a while. And we reached the point where we started to do classes to teach people how to do concrete countertops in GFRC. And back then, we weren't manufacturing any of the chemicals ourselves. We were buying everything just the way you guys are. And um, it used to be our joke, not so funny joke, but if we wanted to mess up a job that we were doing for a customer, we would do it during a class. It was, trying to teach and talk and, weigh out all the intricate mixes with all the additives. After a class, Mark and I were sitting around, Mark Selbuski, my business partner, and I were sitting around and said, wouldn't it be cool if someone would make an additive that just did, took all the properties of the additives that we were using, defoamers, plasticizers, wetting agents, polymer, um, and combined all that into one unit. And as that conversation continued, um, we added to it, wouldn't it be great if it was a powder so we don't have to pay to ship liquids? And wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to worry about the issues that liquid polymers caused? And so we finally got serious enough about it and made a mix, an additive mix that, quite honestly, we got super blessed. It was, we made probably two changes to it. Um, and that's once we got that and had some of our customers try it, then we knew we had something. So we started Trinic 10 years ago. As a matter of fact, it was 10 years ago last month that we kicked Trinic off. We didn't do not a single sale in the whole first year. We gave away product. We did odd jobs, whatever we could to make ends meet, but we wanted to make sure that we had enough history with the product that it wasn't going to cause problems down the road. Because I had learned about launching from another company that I had about launching products too quickly and making promises that we couldn't deliver on. So we really did our due diligence. Year two, we did some sales. Um, and guys, we have doubled our sales every single year since we've been in business for the first 5 years. And then after that, it's been nothing less than a 25% increase, which is huge. um, and I know that, let me back up. There's a couple things I learned. One, how to grow businesses, and two, that it's possible. Um, so we can talk GFRC, we can talk wet cast concrete, we can talk about whatever questions you got. What I'm kind of picturing this as is, because it's so diverse, I would honestly like to just do this as sort of a question answer. So where you kind of ask your questions and, I'll give you the answers. If someone else has got a better answer, we can kind of turn it into a discussion. I don't want to get off on too many trails because I want to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered and discussed. But, business questions, really whatever you got. I mean, one of the biggest things I see, and I was joking with AJ about it the other day, was, hey, this mix is too expensive, I can't sell it here. Well, that's a mindset change that really needs to be discussed. And picking your right customers for your right market, and there's ways to do that. That's a whole giant conversation in its own. So honestly, I would love to have that conversation with you. I business coach a lot of people, and it's something that always comes up. So, the next one of these we do, maybe that can be the topic. So,
Before the
um,
questions, Bob, I'm sorry to cut. Maybe you can tell what you supply for the customers in Trinic.
yeah. So, I mean, kind of, we don't really manufacture much concrete anymore because the manufacturing of the chemicals and the additives is taken over for, just everything that we do. So, the admix that I was talking about in the beginning, that kind of all powdered admix, is now what we call Tech 10. And it does the job of a polymer, a wetting agent that works differently than a super plasticizer. So it just allows the mix to wet out quicker without making it more runny or lowering the water to cement ratio. Um, and it doesn't have the same pinhole issues that liquid polymers have. And that was our kickoff. That was kind of the core product that started Trinic. Once we got that down, then we expanded out into accelerators or retarders, whether you want to make the mix go faster or slower. A plasticizer, so we could do a self-consolidating mix. Trinic was the first one kind of in the GFRC world to suggest you could do that. And boy, did we get a bunch of pushback. Everyone said, oh, you can't do that with GFRC. We said, why not? And did it. Then, then we've picked up a line of pozzolans, obviously CR mix design, which includes silica fume. And
So you are reselling the products like accelerator or the others. Are you reselling or do you produce them? Which one do you produce and which one do you resell?
So we produce all of our additives. If it has our name on it, we manufacture it. If it has someone else's name on it, then we're just buying it and reselling it. Like silica fume, obviously we don't manufacture that. That's made, it's a byproduct of manufacturing zirconium. And we have two sources, one in the US and one in China, that have a really good silica fume. What we looked for in a silica fume, first and foremost, we wanted it to be white, because our larger customers that do building, cladding, and things like that, they need a white mix so their colors are consistent. The second thing we looked for was something that has about the same water demand as cement, because like you all know, the more water you add, the weaker the mix becomes. And in a thin section mix like GFRC, it's very important to control your water to cement ratio, at least within a range. You know, sand has a big impact on that, and we can get into that next. But you know, then the next thing we did was add a few lines of fiber, and we carry Nippon Electric Glass. We carry obviously Owens Corning. We're Owens Corning's largest distributor in North America. And we just recently teamed up with Kuraray out of Japan to carry PVA. They're the kind of the premier manufacturer of PVA fiber. And each fiber has its own benefits and its own drawbacks. And, you know, we can discuss that in detail too, if you want. But then, you know, then we kind of had the full scope of what we needed to really do self-consolidating mixes and spray up mixes. And it sort of rounded everything out. And then there's a few like lightweight additives that we carry. And then the next step, of course, was sealers, colors. So as we progressed, we just kept adding these things to our product line. And I think we've got something now where we're pretty full. We offer a pretty full range of products. We're just discussing, it's funny, just before I got on here, I was discussing with Warren Ness, who's probably one of the best vertical carvers that I know. And he's the one that helped us develop the Carves ad mix for vertical carving. Our new line of colors, the topical colors, he helped develop those. And we were discussing tools. And when we first started out, I always said, you know, I don't really want to carry tools. Everyone carries them. But honestly, so many people just want the one-stop shop that they ask, hey, can you guys carry tools? And so we're probably going to go back on what I promised myself and add a line of tools as well.
Yeah, okay. Let's go on with the questions. Deal?
Deal. Yep.
Okay.
So anything's fair game. If I don't know, I'm just going to tell you I don't know. But you know, you can just fire off. Honestly, what you're having problems with, or what you would like to change. If you could change anything about the business, would be a good place to start.
Anyone?
Well,
No
I have
question?
Hi.
Okay.
Hey, Sophia.
I want to ask you about the use of wax after sealing. Do you recommend using wax in pieces to prolong the life of the sealer, like to get another layer of protection?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, when we first started out, you know, the only thing we really had was a cheap water-based acrylic and then, you know, wax to go over it, because that's kind of where the sealers were. And, you know, we've tried, you know, every sealer out there for every application, I think, has probably been tried at some point or another on concrete. But wax is a great deal. We do... you know, we've got a couple products that perform better than the typical wax, right? And believe me, I'm super conscious of where you all are located, and it's not as easy as running next door to Home Depot to pick up, you know, the wax or some products, especially if they're specialty products. So to answer your question, Sophia, yeah, wax is great. It breaks the surface tension. So when you slide things across the countertop, it allows that object to slide without necessarily damaging the sealer. The other advantage is it's really easy to do, and even a semi-savvy homeowner can do it. It's inexpensive, and it's easy to maintain. Here's why I really like letting the homeowner have control of how they maintain their tops. because quite honestly, guys, it takes us off the hook. You know, if we say, you know, hey, we recommend waxing this, you know, once a month, once every 6 months, depends what you're using for a wax. Then if they don't do that, they're going to call us back and say, hey, this top's scratched, it's starting to stain. Okay, no problem. When's the last time you waxed it? Oh, well, you know, and they're probably going to tell you, yeah, we do it regularly, but we all know better. What that does, that opens up the option to charge them to go refinish their top. Now, obviously, if they're a great customer and they're going to, you know, bring you more business, then you're going to have to make the business decision. Do we go and do it for free? Do we charge a discounted rate, or do we charge what we're, you know, what we should charge to go do it? So I know that's a lot to answer that question, but it's important that you kind of know how we fold, you know, smart business decisions into what we offer. So, Sophia, yeah, wax is great. Look into some waxes that are used for floors. And a couple things you want to do, make sure. Number one, is it compatible with whatever the sealer you're using is? Chances are it'll be fine. Most floor waxes are acrylic with a little bit of urethane mixed in. And second is, can it be applied easily and look nice enough that a homeowner can do it? And I would suggest, you know, putting together a sheet saying, hey, this is how you apply it. Maybe even a short video. People love videos. And honestly, you could post it to YouTube, and, you know, that's going to lead into our marketing discussion. But, you know, you could put it up there. It's a great tool for your customers.
Great answer, Bob. Thank you. Would you recommend Carnauba wax?
Carnauba wax is great. It's, you know, everyone's going to ask, is it food safe? Look, even most petroleum based waxes don't have much petroleum in them. So, you know, food contact's not an issue. Carnauba wax is one of those items that does not have any petroleum in it. It's a little bit hard, so it takes a little bit more to put it on, but the effort's worth it. So it's a good wax.
Great, thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Bob, there are questions in the chat room. Mark said that, hi Bob, we are soon getting a Trinic distributor here in Toronto. Thanks for linking me to them. At present, I use Body Rose products, what I should. I keep in mind when switching to Trinic. Feel free to trash Body Rose, haha.
Yeah, it's sort of our business tactics to not really trash anyone. You know, I've got a pretty good sense of humor, so, you know, I like to pick on a lot of people as they like to pick on me, but I'm not going to trash any of my competitors. They're okay. Like Buddy Rhodes, you know, Buddy Rhodes himself, first of all, if you haven't met him, he's an outstanding individual, just a great guy, passionate about the industry. Couldn't find a nicer guy. When they sold out to the conglomerate that owns them, some things have changed. So I'll just let it go at that. But as far as a distributor in Toronto, yeah, honestly, they approached us and said, hey, we're looking for a really good product. We heard a lot about you guys, and, you know, one thing led to another. So they should have product there, you know, hopefully by the beginning of next month.
And Anna, why don't you talk and you type there? I want to see in the big screen.
George offered to type questions.
Maybe George is not handsome and offered that.
Okay, read my question, please.
Okay, hi Bob. Is there any workshops scheduled for 2021 which Trinic will do? How long usually lasts workshop?
All right, hold on, Anna. I got to find that so I can read it.
She's asking for.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I see it. All right. So, starting at the tail end of 2019, Anna, we had an awesome plan to offer 3 stages of classes. So the beginner kind of thing, and then the second stage, which would be a little bit more advanced, and then a third stage that would be kind of like the professional. Each class starting with a simple project for the beginner. The intermediate class was a little more advanced, like wood looks, coloring techniques, bigger vertical pieces. And then the advanced class was going to be the full blown, hey, if you want to set up a company to do building cladding, here's engineering, here's, fasteners, advanced techniques of 3D molds and things like that. But that kind of got the door slammed on it. We were going to do a class a month for the beginner classes. Intermediate classes were going to be once every quarter, so 4 times a year. And then the advanced classes probably once a year. And what that was going to do is give people the opportunity to walk through in order to whatever level they were comfortable with. And we were going to offer a kind of a certification, not that there's an industry-backed certification, but it would be a certification that you guys could use for marketing purposes that said, hey, I attended these classes. It lets your customer know that you've put effort and time and money into becoming better at your craft. So it sounded great. We had it all laid out. We did 1 beginner class and COVID hit. So that was the end of that. Obviously, you all watch our horrible news. And so I'm not sure what's going to happen for 2021. I believe that we're going to be limited as much as we were in 2020 for gatherings, maybe even more. So, and it's so up in the air, and for us to travel out of the country, it's just such a hassle. I would love, love, love to have other classes that we could go to, make an appearance at, coach through, participate in, in all of that. But I just don't know. It's going to be up to the governments of all of our countries to decide what we're really allowed to do.
Thank you, Bob. But usually, what is the duration of your courses? For example, simple class and the middle class and the professional class, how many days it lasts?
So the simple class is usually 2 days, and we usually do them on Thursday and Friday. The intermediate class was 4 days, and the advanced class was 5 days. Mm-hmm. So, and then we do the vertical carving classes separately. And we usually do them immediately after a GFRC class or a cast in place class, because there's going to be some people that are interested in both. And usually those run 3 days.
Mm-hmm. I got it. Thanks, Bob.
Yep. So next one.
Minur asked that, is this Excalibur behind you?
Yeah. So
what is the meaning of that sword really? In your logo also there are 2 swords.
Yeah. So for us, we are a Christian-owned company. The sword represents the Word of God, as referred to as the sword of the Spirit in the Bible. The shield is a shield of faith. The 2 swords came from a friend of mine who was going through a hard time, and we were kind of coaching him and talking to him about it. And he came up with a saying of 2 swords, no shields. And the idea behind that was just an all-out offensive. And he has started operating a business that way, where his kind of major holdback, and honestly, it was mine too, is being afraid to do anything, kind of afraid to fail. So, the idea behind that was putting fear aside and just running straight forward into whatever your dream for your business is. So that's where the swords come in.
Thank you. And want to ask that, can we avoid pozzolans in the mix?
So can you avoid pozzolans? Yes, you can. Should you? No. Pozzolans, like, here's an example. If you made our mix, or really any GFRC mix with no pozzolan, it's going to be on the average of about 20% weaker. Now, is that a make or break kind of deal? No, it's not, because most of the stuff is so over-engineered that we can afford to give up 20% of the strength. Where the other benefits of pozzolans come in is they really help stop efflorescence, the white chalky material that comes out of concrete. And what that is moisture ingresses into the concrete, dissolves the natural salts and lime in the concrete. And as the water evaporates, leaves the excess salt and lime on the surface. So for any of us that are doing things outdoors that are open to the weather, it would behoove us to go ahead and use some sort of a pozzolan. Silica fume. We chose silica fume, like I said, for a couple of reasons. One, it has about the same water demand as cement. Two, we picked the white one. Third thing, strength add, its ability to limit efflorescence, and the fact that that pozzolanic reaction happens quickly. So it completes its the white silica fume that we have, and this has to do with particle size, is it completes that pozzolanic reaction in about 8 to 24 hours. Processed glass, like VCAS, that takes about 8 days for that reaction to happen. Well, in our world, most of the time, if we cast something in 8 days, it's installed, or in a box to go somewhere. So, so that's why we chose the pozzolans we did. Now, if you're looking to cut cost, you could back them down to, even a few percent, 3% in a mix, 3% of your cementitious weight in a mix will be beneficial. The super sweet spot to kind of get the ultimate benefit of a pozzolan is 13% of your cement weight. The reason why we went with 10, like if you look at any of our mixes and we recommended 10, is because it's a nice, easy, round number. It makes the math easy.
Gurpreet asked that, what kind of sealers we should use on tables considering Indian fooding, or maintenance guidelines to clients?
This sealer conversation could take, 10 years to get through, but it's definitely the Achilles heel of our industry, but it keeps getting better and better all the time. So the question is, what kind of sealers should we use on tables considering Indian food? Fooding. Urethanes are great. They're usually more scratch resistant than acrylics are. They're definitely more scratch resistant than epoxies are. But there's so many things to consider when choosing a sealer. Obviously, how well does it prevent staining and etching? How scratch resistant is it? How easily repaired, which, by the way, the easily repaired is the top of my list when picking a sealer. It has to be easy to fix. If not, if you get a warranty call, it is the quickest way to bankruptcy that you've ever had. If you have to go back and fix sealers under warranty, or, if you choose to fix them for free, you have to be cognizant of the fact that this is costing you more money than you can imagine. So easy to fix is the top of my list. Honestly, last on my list is cost. And I'm not saying that because we sell sealers. I'm saying that because it's the thing that protects the art that we're putting out there. It's very important. Now, if you all were my customers, what I recommend to everyone is our H13. Currently, we've got a few sealers under development for indoor kitchen countertops. And the reason being, it's a water-based urethane. And the reason being is it offers kind of the best of all of those things. It's pretty scratch resistant. Staining's really not an issue in concrete anymore. The sealers have kind of come to that point where there's not a real problem with staining. Etching is still, can be a problem. So by etching, I mean, mustard, hot sauce, really anything with vinegar in it or anything with citrus in it, because those acidic materials, as they make their way through the sealer, if they actually get to the surface of the concrete, they consume the concrete and it leaves a mark that you're not going to get rid of without sanding it out. And look, marble has the same issues, right? So for companies that put in marble countertops, they face the same problems. For anything else that's not an indoor kitchen countertop, we recommend our Stamp Shield product. And all that is, it's a blend of acrylic and silane, S-I-L-A-N-E. And silane chemically reacts with the concrete. Most penetrating sealers have it in there. It's a great waterproofer, but it on itself doesn't protect against any acids. There's not a single penetrating sealer out there right now, don't care what it is, that actually protects concrete or limestone from etching. So you need a topical film. And then the next question is, we want the topical film to be as natural looking as possible so the beauty of our concrete shows through. And Stamp Shield kind of covers both of those. When you're looking for a sealer locally, or if you're buying it, even if you have to have it shipped in, I would kind of pick those criteria. How well does it actually perform? Get a sample, do it yourself, and see how it performs on your concrete, because all the sealers nowadays react with the surface. It's just the way to go. But everybody's concrete's different, so it acts a little bit different. Like the Portland cement that Anna's using is going to be different than the Portland cement that we're using. So it's gonna react a little bit differently. And I know it's a long and arduous and extremely frustrating process, but honestly, you owe it to yourselves and you owe it to your customers to go ahead and do that testing so you can explain to your customer exactly what to expect out of that sealer on your concrete. Did that answer the question, I hope?
Yeah, that was good.
And George has a question. Bob, you mentioned water demand of sand. What do you suggest when you have a water demanding sand? More water or more superfluous either?
Yeah, so we're going to walk that fine line. This is probably the biggest tech call that we take of what the heck is causing the micro cracking. And when I say micro cracking, we call it map cracking. Little tiny cracks. Sometimes they look like alligator skin or crocodile skin. They have a little tiny pattern to them. Or if they're long cracks, then they're either plastic shrinkage cracks or expansion cracks. And all of that is most attributed to, not totally, but most attributed to water in your sand. The finer the sand, obviously the nicer the concrete, right? It comes out, looks like glass, it's beautiful. Problem is, the finer the sand, the higher the water demand, because the water has to cling to the surface and gets absorbed into the sand particles itself. So if there's more surface area, it's going to have more water. More water makes weaker concrete. One of the crazy things that we see more often than not is, hey, I made this beautiful piece of concrete, came out great, and it cracked 3 days later. What that can be most usually is slow water absorption. So your sand is sucking up the water as fast as you're putting it in there. It also causes, if it does it quickly, then we can catch it, and it's what we call a false set. So if you've mixed your mix, you let it set for a couple minutes and it gets really stiff and you have to add more water to it. That's generally your sand sucking out, or a cheap pozzolan, sucking moisture out of the concrete. And in that case, you're best off adding a little bit more water to it versus a plasticizer. If you add a plasticizer to it, it can appear that the water demand for the cement and the sand is met, that it's got all the water that it needs to cause the reaction. What happens is that's not the case. So it's constantly looking for more water. And if the sand is stealing the water from the cement, then the reaction is not taking place. And you're going to end up with a weaker piece. It's going to crack. It's going to shrink and crack. Some of the ways to overcome sands that are very thirsty is, number one, find the particle size that is kind of the sweet spot. So we do, what we're looking for when we do GFRC is something between 30 mesh and 50 mesh. And you can download a chart to see what that is in millimeters or microns or whatever your unit of measurement you're used to using. Sand in that slot, that 30 to 50 slot, works pretty good for spray up applications, cast in place, or self-consolidating mixes. It just is that sweet spot that works. The sand that we use is a ground quartzite sand, so it's extremely hard and it has a very low water absorption, less than 1%. So it's we're fortunate enough to be able to have it somewhat close to us. We get it delivered by a tanker truck and they pneumatically blow it into the silos we use. But not everyone has that luxury. So, my advice is find a sand that's the right mesh and try it and see what your water demand is with it. If it's a high water demand and you can't feasibly get any other sand, we have to make this work, then one of the tricks is you can dose your sand first and then dose about 50 to 80% of your water into the sand and let it sit. That will preload the sand with water and satisfy its thirst, if you will, and then add your other ingredients when you're mixing. If you run across this situation, I'm more than happy to help you guys out and kind of walk you through that process. So there's, like I said, it's not the end of the world if you can't find the perfect sand, but see what's available out there, and then we'll make it work from there.
Yeah, Conrad has a question. All your products and receipts are based on 100% pure Portland cement types. Different products for different specific surfaces of cement, so slower. I think he asks us, do you use different types of cements in different products?
Yeah, so honestly, we don't. We use a typical type 1-2 white Portland cement. Ours happens to be made by a company called Federal. It's mined out of Canada. And we chose that one because there's one mine that they pull the Portland from, and it's super consistent. One of the things that will drive you absolutely crazy is if you buy your cement from someplace like Home Depot or Lowe's that turns over a lot of, questionable quality material. With those changes, and everybody always blames the admix manufacturers, not just us. It could be Seek or DuPont or whoever. We always get blamed when the mix isn't exactly the same, when quite honestly, the two most biggest factors are also your two biggest ingredients. They're sand and cement. And in this case, if your cement varies a lot, whether it's ground a little bit differently or it's just a different, little bit different blend, it's the bottom of the silo when they're bagging it, whatever it is, it's going to change. And you kind of got to roll with the punches with it, and just know that, hey, it's going to act a little bit differently. If you're doing very small projects, then you just get to adjust each mix as it goes. If you're doing a big project, say like wall panels or large format tile where you're going to make many mixes, honestly it would behoove you guys to get all your raw materials at first and kind of blend your cement. Choose from a couple different bags and mix that together. It's the best way to make it as consistent as you possibly can. There's still going to be changes, but they won't be as drastic. You won't get the color differences. You won't get the big changes in water demand. There'll still be differences, but they'll be more subtle.
Yeah, Marcus asks that if you talk about pozzolans, do you mean fly ash or silica fume or whatever? I am confused with all the different names.
Sure. Well, there's several different pozzolanic materials. Fly ash was kind of the one that was most available. Most ready mix companies used fly ash. It's obviously a byproduct of burning coal for energy. And it worked pretty good in wet cast concrete. Doesn't work so good in GFRC because it has a high water demand. It's a very fine material and it is itself absorbent. It's coal, right? So silica fume is the most pure, but there are tons of different kinds of silica fumes. What I would suggest you do is see if you can find a silica fume that is a byproduct of the chemical companies that make zirconium. And zirconium is what is the coating on AR glass fibers. You'll see the zirconium content. In our world, we have to play by the rules of an organization called PCI. It's pre-stressed or precast concrete. And they specify that fibers have a 16% zirconium content. The reason they do that is because they don't degrade in the concrete. But a byproduct of manufacturing those is a really high quality silica fume that has residual amounts of zirconium in it. And zirconium in concrete is magical. It reacts quickly. It holds everything together like a glue nicely. It makes the product a little bit slippery, so it blends nicely. That's why we choose silica fume. You could use metakaolin or kaolin clay. That works pretty good, but it's also got a little bit higher of a water demand. Let's see. Yeah, silica fume, fly ash, metakaolin. There's processed glass out there. Like if the glass is ground to 325 micron or finer, it becomes pozzolanic and not problematic in the concrete. Any glass in concrete larger than that, you can have what they call an alkali silica reaction. And what happens is it builds a little gel around it. It makes for a weaker concrete. But if it's ground finely enough, then it consumes it in the mix and you don't have that. It goes from problematic to beneficial. Slag is another one that's commonly used in wet cast concrete. And again, it works. It has a longer reaction time and a higher water demand. So, you can kind of pick what's available, and it really kind of comes down to what is it you guys do? Like if you're making GFRC and you're doing large format, really thin section stuff, then get a good pozzolan. If you're, doing things outside that are going to be real subject to the weather, exposed all the time, get a good pozzolan. If they're not, then cut it out or use a lesser quality one.
How about marble powder?
Marble powder works pretty good. The problem with marble powder is, remember that marble is limestone. So you're adding extra salt and lime to your concrete, which already has a fair amount of it in the Portland itself. So you can increase the chances of efflorescence by adding that. Marble powder isn't necessarily pozzolanic, but we can go back to the old technique called slagging concrete, right? Where it makes it stickier, makes it nicer to work with. And it has benefits in the particle size. Talk particle packing as in, like, a lot of UHPC recipes have marble dust in them. So, it can be beneficial, but it doesn't have a great pozzolanic reaction.
Okay, Munir has a question, but I suggest to Munir to ask himself so we can see him on the main screen, if he accepts, and if you accept.
Yeah. Let's see.
So I was asking that I visited many old homes and I saw their concrete floors. Those concrete floors have no sealer on, but they still shine till this date, and they virtually are stain free. When I asked the owner of this house how was the floor made, he said it was casted, and during the days it was curing, it was polished using stone by hand. So is there any science or explanation behind that?
Yeah, there is. Concrete, honestly, is one of the building materials that's gotten worse over time. The concrete we use nowadays is far inferior to the concrete of days gone by. When you polish concrete, it refines the surface, right? So you're basically doing your best to make it as tight as you can. Polishing isn't going to make bad concrete into good concrete, but it will make good concrete better. And the older the concrete becomes, the more that salt and lime has already worked its way out of it. So it becomes more and more like stone over time. And it's not as subject to the staining or etching attacks as fresh concrete is. The other thing is, on older floors, look, they just get used all the time. That thing's probably been mopped 1,000 times, so it's gotten to the point where it's kind of become almost impervious just by the buildup of stuff that's in it, not to mention the concrete itself has gotten better, where it will almost repel water. Now, the hand polishing with the stones, whether you do it by hand or you do it with a machine, works the fine materials into the pores of that concrete, and it becomes more and more impervious. That's why it has a shine. You can make concrete shine without using a densifier or a sealer. It's no different than polishing stone.
And Marcus asked that, Bob, I would like to know your view on the ceramics market for developing countries. In which countries is Trinic present? And how many years it took for the ceramics bench industry to become what it is today in the USA?
Okay, so my take on premix changed from when we started this company to now. Our whole thought process behind a powdered admix was to save, customers on shipping. So obviously all liquid polymers are roughly 50% water. They vary a little bit, but why would you want to pay us to ship water? Well, we took the same thought process with premixes. Like, why would you want us to pay and ship you guys sand and cement? The problem is our customers had a different thought. They were like, just send us the premix. That way we know what it's going to do. We don't have to worry about it. It's pretty consistent, and they get to use our test results. So in our world, I mean, we sell to people that do little, knickknacks and, beer koozies, and all the way up to people that are doing building cladding and full homes out of GFRC. So we, I was distracted by the beard comment. Thanks, guys. But so for us, consistency is super important, and we've got tons of testing, which if you use a premix, then you get to use our testing. So, disadvantages are shipping. The advantages are a consistent product that you know is going to perform pretty much the same, time in and time out. As far as where we sell, we have 4 distributors in Canada. We have one that's probably coming on in Mexico. Sophia might be happy to hear that. But they're a huge customer, and they've asked about distributing. We've got distributor in Australia, Ben's in England, and we have one in Norway, and I'm probably forgetting a few, but we sell, I think last count was 72 different countries, so we are looking for more. And AJ in India just came on too. So, we're looking for more distributors. It just makes more sense to have them buy in bulk and then distribute it out from there versus you buying a quart of sealer from us.
Yeah, Marcus has a question, but Marcus, can you unmute yourself and ask that voting question, please, about the beard?
Oh, good grief.
Why don't you read it to me?
So let's see. Marcus says, Bob, how long are you going to let grow your beard? And if you're undecided, would you accept our vote on it? So
I agree with voting in the group after the meeting.
What's that?
I agree with the voting about your beard in the group.
So my wife really doesn't like it, and it's my way of, just getting back at her. So I'm going to keep it for a while.
Berlin.
Your beard just dropped down from your head, I guess, no?
It did, yeah. Yep. It's not the only thing. If I stood up, you'd see how fat I am too. It all used to be up here, but now it's down here. So
just same here,
yeah. It happens, I'm a lot older. I look a lot older than I am. So Sophia,
about lightweight concrete.
Yeah. So do I recommend glass spheres, expanded glass? So we tested a lot of it. As a matter of fact, we partnered with 3M about a year after Paraver came out with their lightweight additive. And what we found with the glass spheres is they work, but they don't really reduce a lot of weight. The benefit that you get compared to the cost is pretty minimal. And we found a company called City Mix, and this is the most ingenious thing, and it is patented, but I can't imagine there's not other companies out there doing something similar. All it is a polystyrene bead. Do you remember the good old fashioned beanbag chairs that, at least I had when I was a kid? So it's small beads, but they're coated with a pozzolan, which happens to be silica fume. So they chemically lock into the concrete. The benefit of using those was so much more. So we can replace, heck, we've even done pieces where we replaced all of the sand, 100% of the sand with City Mix. And yes, it makes for a little bit weaker concrete, but it makes a great filler. And the concrete's so light, it'll float on water. Normally what we do is about a 25% sand replacement with City Mix, and that reduces the weight of the piece about 12.5%. But you can vary it depending on what you want. Your strength loss at a 25% additive of something like City Mix is usually around 15%. So it's not awful. Again, going back to, it's pretty over-engineered for what we want to do. But that's a kind of specific product. Back to the glass. The glass, it helps the concrete flow. So if you're doing a cast in place, or if you're, doing a self-consolidating mix, then it's beneficial on two. One, it reduces the weight a little bit, but two, it actually helps it flow because the particles are round, so it just rolls into the form better. Did that answer your question?
So just 12% weight reduction with this city mix?
If you replace 25% of your sand.
But you wouldn't recommend replacing more sand, right?
You can. We've done jobs where we replaced all of the sand. Like say I have somebody that wants this top that looks, 3 inches thick, whatever that is in millimeters. I'll let someone speak to that. And they want it to look like it's a solid slab. Well, if it was indoors, I would just do, a drop edge or put a piece of foam in there and do a foam core. And what I mean by foam core is there's concrete on the top and then concrete on the bottom, obviously all the way around. The foam's encapsulated in it. We can't do that outside in an area that has freeze thaw because you'll get condensation in there. It'll freeze, it'll break it. So what we do, Sophia, is we'll cast the thing with regular GFRC with drop edges. So we have all the strength we need, but then we'll fill that void, replacing all of the sand with city mix. So it's basically half cement, half city mix plus the additives. And it's tough enough. It comes out to be about 3,000 PSI. So it's not, it's not super strong, but it's strong enough for a filler. So, and then, anywhere in between, depends on the project.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Mm-hmm. What's my view on air entrained concrete for use in outdoor cladding? Look, if you're doing a wet cast mix, and when I say wet cast, I mean it has sand and stone aggregate and lower cement, usually about 38% cement, then that's a great idea. That's a good way to help with the freeze thaw. If it's GFRC goes the other way. It's too tight to allow enough moisture into the concrete. It's too dense to allow enough moisture into the concrete to have an issue with weathering or, or freeze thaw. So you don't really ever want to do, well, with the exception of UHPC, you don't really ever want to do air entrainment in GFRC.
Okay, thank you.
Bob, I have a question too. Did you try any geopolymer concretes in your workshop, and did you achieve with it?
Yeah, we did. We played around, and honestly, we're still kind of playing with it. It worked pretty good. We definitely lost some strength out of it. So we had to go a little bit thicker to get to the properties that we needed out of that concrete. Believe me, I'm no expert on it, but we have the nice thing with us is we've got a lab, and we can do the flex test, compression test, initial set. We can test how much air is in it, and all those things here in our lab. So even like 3M, like I said, when they were developing their glass spheres, they came to us and said, will you try them and give us feedback? So we get to do all the testing, as we can. And honestly, Eric, and where I'm at right now is if I had more time, I would dive into it more. But, I saw that was a topic somebody was talking about on the forum here. So.
And how do you see the future of the market with polymer or geopolymer concrete?
Yeah, I mean, until they can come up with a way that you get the same properties out of it, mostly the accelerated weathering, they're still going to have polymer in it. It's just one of those things that it doesn't do what we want it to do without it. The market is definitely wants to go that way. You know, we've kind of went from, hey, it works to, hey, it works and it's super complicated and way over engineered. Now it's starting to come back to, how can we just make this stuff simpler, easier, and obviously less expensive? You know, the environmental movement, you know, polymers are like hydrocarbons. You know, everyone's like, you know, we don't want any polymers in there, but honestly, it's you know, trillions of dollars in that industry. So I don't think we're going to see it go away anytime soon. What are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the big cement producers, the factories in the world, they are very strong and they are very, you know, rich. And I think that they will, they can't stop it. You know, it is the science, but somehow they won't help that growth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, you just follow the money trail and know why they
Yeah,
don't want that.
it will
But
go
quite,
very slowly, I think.
yeah. And honestly, it's industry that helps move it forward, because we're not subject to most of their rules and regulations and specifications. So we get to try all these cool new things out and, you know, see what happens. I'm honestly working with someone right now that's doing a silica free concrete, and it works very well. You know, there's no silica in it whatsoever. And the only drawback is right now the technology is so new that it's incredibly expensive.
Yeah, that's right. iPad asked, who is iPad? iPad asked, please don't misunderstand geopolymer cement and concrete, which is completely inorganic, and polymers, organic, that you
Mhm.
add into OPC-based concrete.
Right. Yeah, I understand. You know, the geopolymer cements, like I say, we can't really get them to do what we need them to do, or I haven't been able to. And again, I'm no expert on it, you know, so I'm kind of right there with you guys. I'm super intrigued by it. Um, where I'd like to keep looking into it more, but currently what I've experienced of it just doesn't do what we needed to do yet.
Here in Europe, the geopolymer concrete is already used quite often in wet cast.
Yeah, see, and in that, I think it's an easier goal to meet, versus real thin section stuff to replace like GFRC, where it just doesn't have the same strengths and this mostly the same flexual strengths as GFRC does that I have seen yet.
Did you spray it or just wet cast it with the polymer concrete? Did you try to
Well,
spray it?
yeah, we tried both. You know, and it didn't spray too bad, to be honest with you. Um, and it came out pretty good. It was more just the strength and the lack of flexual strength that was an issue.
Any more questions, guys?
Well, I have something in my mind from where we left about the lightweight concrete, because talking about this, that it reduced only a little bit of the weight, and maybe this is a question for everyone, but what would you do with, for example, tabletops, if you're selling furniture that are, for example, 3 meters long? I think in inches is like 100 inches or something like that. I mean, they will be 100 kilograms. The weight would be 100 kilograms or something like that, and we cannot reduce it. Or is there any other option to reduce it? The questions come because we got the offer from a furniture store that they sell a lot of furniture, to sell this type of tables from us, and we feel that the logistics will make it a little bit impossible for us to sell this kind. We need to move them.
Yeah, so you can
see to have that is strong, you cannot
Sophia,
reduce
I
weight
think
that much.
So you're kind of cutting out, Sophia, but I think what you're really asking is, can you reduce the weight more? And the answer is yes, you can. you can replace more sand with lighter material. And the other thing that you got to be that helps a lot is remember the water that you're putting into the cement, only a little bit of it's evaporating. So that's adding to your total weight of your finished concrete. So if you keep your water to cement ratio as low as you possibly can, you're going to shave some off of there. But my suggestion would be go ahead and replace, more sand. Like shoot for whatever your target weight is, replace as much sand as you need to, and see what the results are. And if you want, we can communicate offline back and forth about that, and I'll help you kind of find the optimum dosage. And you should be able to get where you want to be. The use of foam might help, maybe city mix. I know that's going to be a shipping thing for you, but there's options and we can work with it.
Okay, thanks. We'll definitely back.
Yeah, you're not the only one in that boat that wants to do that. So Manure said, is foam concrete a solution? Maybe. There's a subject I'm really not familiar with at all. I've seen it. We had someone come in and do a demo on it, but if anyone else has some experience in that, that might be a solution for her as well. So, any other questions?
Can you tell us a little bit more about Tech 10? I mean, the admix that you have, and what's the best way to use it? I understand it's a bit expensive to get it here, in general in Europe. So the usage should be used in products that are financially correct, let's say, in order to get your money back for replacing that or for adding that admix. I mean, there is going to be a cost. So small items obviously doesn't worth using Tech 10. But in which products do you suggest that it's most viable to use?
So honestly, the way we kind of judge that is, even if it's a small item, the thinner that you want it to be, or the more it needs to be flexible. So think like floor tile or large format floor tile. The Tech 10 adds so much strength, both compression and flexural, to the concrete that it's almost invaluable. I mean, any polymer does kind of the same thing. The original idea behind a polymer was obviously concrete that's wet cured is much stronger than concrete that's air cured. It doesn't shrink as much, as a slower cure rate, and it just works better. But beyond that, the Tech 10 isn't just a polymer. It does the job of a defoamer, it does the job of a shrinkage reducer. So the kind of advantage to it is it has a really low dosage. We normally dose it at 3% of the cementitious weight. So if you're using a pozzolin's considered a cementitious material. So you take your Portland cement plus your pozzolin, multiply that by 3%. That's the dosage. Liquid polymers are usually dosed somewhere between 6 and 12%, depending on what the manufacturer recommends. The reason is because that's half water, right? So you're kind of getting the same amount of polymer in there, but it's not always the advantages that you're getting. Honestly, we didn't know what we were going to dose Tech 10 at. We just kind of made it and then did a bunch of tests and found out where it worked best. We do have some customers that dose it up to 4.5% for, crazy stuff. We got one customer who does panels that are 27 foot long. So what is that? Is that 9 meters by 4 foot wide? So, 1.25 meters wide at 3/4 of an inch thick. And they're transporting those all over the world. So they go with more Tech 10. But the advantages again are, less shipping, less dosage. Is it for everyone? No. Anytime you make a change to your mix, you're going to need somebody to hold your hand through it and work through what makes it different. And, we've never had anyone have Tech 10 that allowed us to work with them that, it didn't eventually, work for them in a mix. And again, I'm not saying it's the cure all, but, those are the advantages, and the disadvantages.
Thanks, Bob, for your answer. I will contact you later for the usage I want to do.
You just want it cheaper, I know.
I got it already, some samples from Ben. So I'm waiting for them to give them a try.
Nice. Good. Well, like I said, if any of you want to try it, same way with all of our products, I'm accessible. So let me know what you like and what you don't like, and we'll work with you to dial it in.
Okay, Bob. Let's finish with your suggestions to young ladies and guys here about the business and the life.
Okay. So, if I was business, you'll like this. It's kind of a fun exercise, but it really does a good job to kind of start to focus you on what you want. So it's our belief, my belief, that businesses are designed to give us the life that we dream, not create a job. If we wanted a job, we would go work for someone else. The problem is most people get into, especially this business, but any business, thinking they want more time, more money, and more freedom. And it turns out where we don't get any of those things, right? I have friends say, oh, it must be nice to own your own business. And they have no idea. I'm like, yeah, it's not all it's cracked up to be. But in the spirit of having a business that serves you versus you serving it, I always tell everyone, take some time and dream your biggest dreams, what you want your life to look like. And don't consider any restrictions. There's no financial restrictions. There's no political restrictions. There's no geographical restrictions. What do you want? Write that down. Now you know where your finish line is. Then go back to where you are now and develop the plan to get from where you are now to where you want to be. And it's, each country and each situation has its own challenges, but quite honestly, they're just that. They're not barriers, they're challenges. There's ways around it. Most people don't give themselves enough credit, especially in this industry where they'll make something and the first thing they say, and I alluded to this earlier, was, oh, it's too expensive, nobody will buy it. Well, you're selling yourself short, because it's not that no one will buy it. It's the customer that you might be looking at or you think you need to target that's not going to buy it because of that cost. There's people, and look, it's a small world. You can ship all over the world. Make what you want to make to build the company that you want that serves you, and then find the people that are your customer. We call it finding who's your who, right? So it may not be I'm opening a storefront in a small town and expecting to make $1 million, because most of the people in that town probably aren't going to buy what you're offering at the price you're going to ask for it. So that's kind of the overall scope of, dream big dreams. The other thing is know if you're profitable or not. It shocks me that most people in the United States don't have a clue whether they're actually making money, let alone progressing towards their goals. What they know is if there's money in their bank account or not. And it goes way beyond that, because look, if you're spinning your wheels and you're not making any money at it and you love it, that's great. That's a hobby, but it's not a living. So, sit down, figure out what it costs you to make it and what you want to put in your pocket to profit from it, and go do that. And there's many tools to do that. Obviously, marketing and understanding your customer and all that comes into play, which I'm happy to talk about that, in detail if we want to do another one of these. But overall, that's really it. Booze, strippers, parties. What should I do now? That figures. You're gonna have to sell more to afford all that. They all cost money.
I think I'm on the wrong business.
Yeah, I think so too. So, but yeah, I mean, honestly, what most entrepreneurs and a lot of people that are just business owners call themselves entrepreneurs, and there's a distinct difference. Entrepreneurs are dreamers. Business owners are people that work in their business versus working on their business. I coach people, but I also take coaching. So I take some coaching from people, and one of the things that they implemented to me that made a huge difference for moving Trinic forward, because quite honestly, like we got to a point, where we had our hands full and we couldn't grow unless we made some changes. And I didn't know what that looked like. I've never done this before, never been here before. And their suggestion was, even if it's just an hour a week, take some time and take yourself out of your business and look at it from above, as in like, the 40,000 foot view of looking down on it, see what it looks like, and take that time to see what's going on, pick a few things that you really like, pick a few things that you really don't like, and change the things that you don't like. But doing it on a regular basis keeps you working on your business so it can grow and serve you the way you want it to, versus working in it where you're just in it doing the same thing day to day and maybe not getting the results that you could.
Is it that easy?
Honestly, I said the same thing. I was like, no freaking way, whatever. There's still stuff that needs to get done. And, if I'm not doing it, then no one else is going to do it. But I kind of resigned to the fact of, hey, let's try it. And it's amazing how much that 1 hour a week can change your business. I mean, and I started this in 2019 with this particular coach, because we had reached, like I said, we kind of reached a point where we couldn't grow, or I didn't know how to grow it any bigger, and started doing just that. And despite COVID, we, at the end of each year, we set a sales goal and a profit goal, and we exceeded our profit goal and our sales goal. We increased our sales, decreased our cost, despite COVID, all through 2020. So, and there's no way that would have happened without making some changes that just popped up in those days of chilling for an hour and looking at the business.
Yeah, great. Any questions else, or we can finish it? Because we planned it like 90 minutes and it's almost 90 minutes. And you look tired today. Did you wake up very early?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
At what time you wake up in the day?
Usually about 4 a.m.
4 a.m.? Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How many hours do you sleep?
About 6. I'd like to sleep more, but unfortunately I just don't. I haven't set an alarm in probably 14 years, unless I fly. If I got an early flight, I set an alarm. But
Thank you very much, Bob.
Well, I have another question.
Okay, it's okay.
We have 7 minutes. I have a question. The other day when I was asking about polymers and you were advising not to use polymers for my use, Monil said that using a polycarboxylate superplasticizer, for what I understood, he said, like, if you are using a polycarboxylate plasticizer, you don't need the polymer. So does it mean that it does the job of the polymer?
no, the polycarboxylate, or a plasticizer is just a water reducer, right? So you don't have what a polymer does. It does two things. One, it holds the moisture in, so the water stays more in the concrete. You don't get a lot of evaporation, but it holds in what would evaporate. So it kind of meters the cure and slows the cure. So the cement gets all the water that it needs. It fully reacts. It makes for stronger concrete. It also acts like a glue that kind of helps hold it together. So as water does leave the concrete, it leaves behind microscopic bleed channels. And as the concrete cures, those bleed channels are essentially open spaces in the concrete. And that's what can cause curling, warping, or shrinkage cracks. So those are the advantages of using a polymer. A super plasticizer doesn't do any of that. The super plasticizer does is reduce the water, which also adds strength, because obviously less water, more strength. I think when we were talking, it was a project that was it cast in place, Sophia, if I remember?
No, it's a normal precast.
Oh yeah, so it's a regular, but it's a wet cast mix with stone in it. It's not a GFRC mix.
No, it's a GFRC, self-consolidating GFRC.
Fast set?
No, not really. Normal.
Okay, so then I'm sorry. I would never recommend not using polymer in that. Some people will use a real fast set cement, like a CSA blended cement, that the faster it sets, the less problems that you're going to have with curling or warping, whatever you want to call it. The reason that is because once the concrete reaches about 8,000 PSI ish, it really doesn't want to curl anyway. It's too stiff at that point. Fast set cements, whether you're using a high dose of accelerator, if they work for that, or you're using a CSA cement, they'll get you there quicker before any curling can take place.
Okay, so the fact that it's polycarboxylate doesn't have anything to do with the polymer.
No,
I mean, I know that the plasticizer, the job of the plasticizer is to reduce the water demand, but then it doesn't have anything to do with the
No, the poly and a polycarboxylate super plasticizer makes the mix more slippery, so it flows better with lower water to cement contents. So, but it doesn't form a film that actually holds the moisture in. Now, if you cast it, covered it with plastic, and held the moisture in mechanically that way, that'll help. It's not really a full substitute for a polymer, but again, it depends on how long the piece is and whether you really need it or not.
Okay, so you still recommend the use of the polymer doing a self-consolidating GFRC?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things that, look, and I know, where you're located, and sometimes accessing things like that can be a little tough. So there's ways around it on some projects, but hands down, you're better off using it than you are leaving it out. If you have to leave it out, then there's things we can do to help make it still be somewhat okay.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Anything else? Vote on the beard? Anything?
Ben is your business partner also, right? From UK.
Yeah, that's correct.
He didn't talk anything. Just a spy. He's standing there.
Yeah.
I'm absorbing all of the information.
You have all the information. Okay.
Absorbing it.
Bob, do you know the countertops with integrated sinks?
Uh-huh.
Can they be done with a self-consolidating mix, or do they need to be sprayed?
Yeah, that's a good question. We get that a lot. A lot of people that don't want to spray. If you do an integral sink, the problem with a self-consolidating mix is obviously it tends to flow. So you got to be more patient with it on the vertical parts of the sink. And there's two ways to do that. You could be really patient and wait for it to kind of set up so it stays in place when you put it up on the sides of the sink. Or you can build a back mold where you pour the whole top, you install the back mold, and then pour the sink itself. But you'd have to form a back mold over the whole countertop, Sophia, because otherwise it wants to, as you're pouring it in the sink opening, the bottom of the sink, and it's running down the sink, it's going to want to push out across the top. So if you don't have a mold there, it's just going to raise the concrete up, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. Spraying's not that difficult. Most people are super intimidated by it, but even a simple hopper gun would be faster and less labor to build an integral sink versus trying to cast it with a self-consolidating mix.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, if you're doing a vessel sink, then, I'd just do a 2-part mold and cast those.
Yeah, the vessel sink, I understand. The one with the countertop and the integrated sink, I mean, the backer mold would be very complicated.
It's kind of a pain. I mean, what I have found is it can be done, and I've done them both ways, because believe me, if I can avoid spraying, I will. But it just turned out to be way more labor building the back form and putting it in place and trying to get it to come out right versus spraying it.
Okay, I'll talk to you later about the part where you said that with patience you could do it without the backer mold, but I'll let you go now that it's already time.
Time is up, and it is the evening time, the dinner time in Europe countries, Sophia. Thank you a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you looked hungry. So.
Let's see Ivo. Ivo is just eating.
All right. Well, look, I can't always, get on the forum, but you can reach out to me there. You can email me. It's just bob@trinic.us. So pretty simple. Any questions you got, on our products or other products, I'm happy to help.
Thank you a lot, Bob. It was a great presentation. And
all right.
It's just closer, right? It was really all about concrete. We talk about everything. Almost
Kind of,
everything.
yeah. I'm sure we could carry on for probably 8 hours on this subject or longer. So, if we want to do it again, we can do it again. Or like I said, y'all know how to reach me if you want.
I wish you could record it, right?
Oh, was I supposed to? No, I did. It's recorded.
Okay.
So I'll shoot you the link here when we're done.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for the
All right.
information.
Bob.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks,
My
everyone.
call, you missed the spot.
See ya.
Thanks, Bob.